Welcome back to Let's Have It Out. I am Tinyiko Maluleke, a professor specializing in religion and politics, and I am very passionate about indigenous languages. My guest tonight is Manana Elinor Sisulu, who is head of Puku. She is a writer, an activist. She could have done anything, but has chosen to work on children's books. Now, we know that in these days, you know, globalization, fourth industrial revolution, English, perhaps Mandarin, and maybe Japanese, I don't know, are the languages that everyone is being encouraged to learn. Are indigenous languages contrary to the spirit of the times?
Well, actually not. I mean, that's why the UN has actually declared this a year of indigenous languages, because it came from Latin American indigenous communities who are very worried about what is happening to their languages. And I think the challenges that we face here are shared across the world in various forms and configurations. But and some languages have died, and obviously some languages are more vulnerable, like the island languages, where you have just a few thousand people speaking them. I think South African indigenous languages are quite strong, and certainly not in danger of disappearing. But I think the problem is in literacy and education. As you know, we have a very serious reading challenge. The progress in international reading and literacy studies, South Africa placed 50th out of 50 countries. And though we console ourselves and say, yes, well, it was only 50 countries and not all the countries. Some countries wouldn't even enter because they wouldn't be able to compete. But I think it's still a concerning thing. And the president has been is very passionate about reading and has made this one of the things that he's going to pursue during his presidency. We have also, I mean, then there's been the National Reading Coalition, which has been just started by the National Education and Collaboration Trust. So that issue about reading, part of the problem, and it's not all of it, but part of it is to do with the absence of indigenous language content and the fact that children are struggling. Because if you can imagine, if you speak your mother tongue and you come and you have to learn English at the same time and you have to learn to read in English. So somehow we are not managing it well.
Yeah.
And
are you happy with the education system? Is there enough space for indigenous languages to flower among children? Are the arrangements in the education system good enough for you?
No, they're not good enough. They could be much better. What I can say I'm happy about is that the education department is conscious of this and they're trying to do what they can. But I still feel that there's not enough investment in indigenous languages. And we also need to get our institutions right and what I call the infrastructure of language. What is it that supports the language? If you look at French, or you look at especially French, you have Alliance Française. You know, governments invest a lot in their languages. And you have academy, you have the French Academy. I think I shared with you the wonderful article by A.P. Mda,
yes,
which was written in 1935 when A.P. was a teenager, in which he said that Africans must buy books in their languages. He said this in 1935. And he said, you're not a patriot.
But what's the incentive? What's the incentive? You know, it's one thing to say Africans must buy books. Why should they buy these books? What is in the books to make them want to buy the books?
Yes, well, you should have an industry which produces good books, exciting books, and that's why you need a review culture. and that's why you are reviewing books, because you can say something about these books to improve them and to develop writers with writing craft. So you need to have good books, and the kids need to like the books. So you need to work out how to write good books. And unfortunately, we've got a lot of competition from devices, from iPads and from television, in the case of middle class.
But we ought to harness those so that they are not like competition, but they actually are helping us as tools to enhance indigenous languages.
Yes, certainly. You can complement them through audio books, through animating, and there are people involved in animating books. I don't know if you've seen the book by Zakes Mda, The Prayers of Ubu
Yes.
Kamba. Yes. Yeah. Now, Zakes wrote that book with his son, who is a graphic artist. So they're in the process of animating that. So I think people are doing exciting things. We are very talented people in this country and on this continent who are doing exciting things around children's books. And our job as Puku.coza is to actually bring that together and give a portal where people can access all this information on who is doing what.
So I've seen a book of Mandela's favorite children's stories, for example.
Yes.
It's an audio book. But it's only available in English. Is that a problem? Is that one of the problems that you're trying to plug? Why should a parent look for indigenous language books when they are available in English?
Because you can have a parallel reading process, which is important. And I think we should actually look at the Afrikaans community. Afrikaans has been a very privileged language through a reprehensible political system. But what has happened because of the investment in Afrikaans is that you have a very healthy environment for Afrikaans mother tongue speakers, because the Afrikaans kids can get any book in their own language. So they can read Harry Potter in English and they can read Harry Potter in Afrikaans, for example. And that gives them an advantage because parallel reading the same text in a different language is good for children.
Yeah.
It just
so translation is another area of development.
Yes, and we are fortunate. We do have books which are available across languages. For example, the works of Gina Mhlophe have been translated into several languages.
Okay. Right.
So
we'll continue with this conversation after the break.